What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Zero Mile ADV, a true beginner's guide to adventure motorcycling. And so for those of you that have been coming on my videos lately, a couple of years is not a lot of experience, hence the intro, bud. Anyways, welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking all about seat height, and today we have the KTM XCW 300 on a stand, just for the sake of exaggeration of seat height. But we're getting into seat height to help all of you guys that are maybe a little bit afraid of seat height or concerned about seat height. We're going to dig into it today, some things I have learned. But first, we need to get to the comment last week. In case you weren't aware, the person that I felt gave the best comment was going to wear their own free pair of Zero Mile gloves. These gloves are actually not available on the website, so you cannot purchase these directly. So these are like kind of special. So I went through all the comments last week, and thanks to you to everybody that commented. And the comment of the week last week goes to, I got to look it up here because I can't remember. It goes to Robert Mills 794. And this one was super cool because he said, I bought a 2016 R1200 GS and rode it from Arizona to Alaska in 2018 and then sold it. Then he bought a KTM 1190 Adventure R. And then he said, you're dead right about about the riding you'll be doing or want to do. The GS just suits me better for my riding style. So he ended up buying another GS. And so somebody that really wants like a 1290 Super Adventure R but has a GS, I think maybe that's why I liked it. It just says like, please affirm my purchasing decisions. I need somebody to tell me that I made the right decision. And Robert Mills 794, you are the lucky winner of your free pair of Zero Mile gloves. Shoot me an email at support@zeromileadv.com. Let me know your glove size, and as long as I have it in stock, I will send you a free pair of gloves. I'll try to send you something close if I don't have them, but we should have them because we still got quite a few left. So Robert, shoot us an email. And this week, for the person who leaves, again, comment below. And this week we are giving away for what I think is the best comment of the week. We are going to give away limited run of this Zero Mile mineral wash hoodie with the embroidered logo on the back, a bit subtle. I'm really proud of this product. It was actually really hard to make. So in case you're interested about this hoodie, when we chose the fabric, we had to choose a dark fabric, but we actually had to choose a thicker fabric because the washing process in order to get this like mineral washed, kind of like quasi tie-dye kind of look was actually really hard. And we didn't want to lose the nice thickness and comfort of the mineral wash, and so we actually had to use a thicker fabric that wouldn't break down but then also wouldn't pill like crazy. So it was really hard to choose this, and so because it's kind of a special product, I'm going to give one away. So just like last week, leave a comment below and I will choose from the comments in next week's video who's going to win their very own Zero Mile hooded sweatshirt. As long as we've got it in stock, I will send it to you free of charge. So with that, let's get into today's video. Okay, item number one when it comes to seat height. Now, of course, this looks really, really tall because I have it on a dirt bike stand, so it makes it even taller. So now, as a guy that's 5'9", this thing is sitting above my belly button, which is quite tall. However, I would say that I think, and this may be an unpopular topic, is that seat height is probably more important than bike weight. So hear me out on this. And there's some nuance to this. There's some gray area. So again, all you KTM 890 Adventure R guys that have the tallest seat in the world, you might as well basically have a deep dirt bike seat height. And it's a middleweight bike that are going to talk about how it's just the perfect bike. Leave those comments below. We want to hear you. And you can get your chance to win a free sweatshirt if you have the best comment. But why I think seat height is actually more important, especially for new riders, than bike weight. Perfect example is that I have ridden a number of Harley Davidsons and the Grand American Touring Edition. So if you're not, I know we're talking about Harleys, watch out. Like we don't talk about that on an AV channel, but we are because I think it's important and it kind of just helps illustrate the point that I'm talking about is that those bikes will weigh upwards of 800 to 900 pounds, depending on how they're configured, but they're pretty easy to manage, especially once they're rolling. Not a big deal. I've ridden my Harleys in dirt lots, etc. Never really had any problems. In fact, actually, I rode my Harley in the snow. And even though because we are in the garage today, it's snowing and I didn't want to go ride again, I did ride because I had to get my bike over to the shop, having some stuff installed on the bike that I have. Anyways, I digress. An 800 or 900 pound bike is actually pretty easy to manage because the seat height is pretty manageable. And so it's easy to get your feet down when you come to a stoplight, or if you're like in a parking lot and you're kind of trying to duck walk and you're having to go really slow to maneuver it. It's nice just to have that safety feature of like being able to like dab your feet. Now, fingers crossed, I have never dropped a Harley either. So that's the other thing with the lower seat height, it just makes it easier, even though the bike weighs close to 900 pounds. Now, even my GS, which is a full-size adventure bike, I think it weighs a little over 500 pounds. Go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. I know I should have Googled it. I didn't even Google the weight before I did this video. This guy's an idiot. So leave the comments below. Tell me how heavy the bike is. Hey, and you can win yourself a free sweatshirt in the process if it's a good one. Because we haven't had any good troll comments recently. My troll hunting skills, internet troll hunting skills have not been very good. So we are lacking. So we need some good ones. So leave those comments below about how I should have Googled and researched the actual weight of the bike before talking about it. But hey, these videos aren't scripted. We're going off the cuff here, okay? But anyways, that bike's about 500 pounds, and it is actually harder to manage because it is quite a bit taller. My GS has the sport suspension, and it's about 34.5 inches. So even though it's lighter, it is actually harder to manage at slower speeds because I can just get my feet to the ground. And so I think one thing to think about is that I think if you're interested in getting dirt, and that was one of the big reasons if you go back and why I chose the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S is because I could get the low seat on it, and with that low seat and the way the ergonomics of that bike are, it made it actually pretty easy to manage. I think the height of the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S with the low seat is around 33 inches, 33.5 inches, where everybody's favorite, the KTM 890 Adventure R, world's best adventure bike, the only adventure bike you'd ever need. That seat height is around, I think it's like 35.6, so it's almost like 36 inches, which is really, really tall. So again, I think if you can find the right bike, like the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, actually runner-up number 2 in the comment section for last week, they were talking about that they had purchased the Tiger 900 Rally Pro and how they really liked it. I think that bike from a seat height and being able to manage in technical terrain is pretty amazing just because the way you kind of sit low in the bike, it makes it gets that seat height just above 33 inches, I believe, if you get the low version, but it is pretty manageable. So let's move on. Okay, another thing that I think, and I did a video on this, and I talked about how I think the biggest problem with the Norden 901 from being like the perfect adventure bike, I think it is absolutely an amazing bike, is just the width of the seat. So I think seat design also plays a major role in how easy it is to manage that bike. So with the right seat design, not only should it provide you comfort, but also it should make it easy to get on the ground. I think one of the best seat designs I've seen on an adventure bike to make it easy to get to the ground, because again, the wider your legs spread, basically the lower you have to be to the ground to reach, right? Has anybody seen that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they're doing the construction project and Dennis puts on those like super short shorts and he's like, look how low I can get, like how wide I can spread my legs. Anyways, that's what I think about every time I think about seat width. I don't know why, probably because that's just an awesome show. But seat design, I think, plays an important role. So when you're looking for bikes, sometimes too, I think one thing to look at is like, how does the seat design fit your personal ergonomics? Like, is it going to be comfortable and fit your style of riding? Now, to actually give a shout out to the KTM Adventure 890 Adventure R, like the big tall one, that bike is roughly the same height as the Norden when it comes to seat height wise, but it is much more manageable because it has a really narrow seat. It almost has like a dirt bike style seat. So like if you notice on dirt bikes, the seats are really narrow, right? Because these bikes are tall. I don't know what the actual height is. Again, I should have Googled it. I know, but I didn't. But again, like on this dirt bike seat, it is really narrow, which makes it pretty easy to manage. So when you get off road, like I've been riding a lot more technical single track, I can dab pretty easily. I don't really have any problems like getting my feet to the ground to prevent me from dropping it, although still dropping the bike, because you guys know me, I'm always dropping bikes. But I think just the design of the seat is important. Again, back to the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, that seat design is really good. It is not only is it comfortable, like in the right places, so like on long road days, I never had like that concrete butt feeling or numb butt feeling. Unlike the KTM 890 Adventure R, that seat is just awful. But like the Norden 901, That seat is super, super comfortable. I should say Expedition. 901 Expedition, not the standard 901, because the standard 901 doesn't have the same suspension, which it isn't quite as tall. But that seat is just really, really wide. And so it is super comfortable on the road, and if you can sit on long days. And to the guy who commented on one of my videos about the Nord 901, he's like, oh, it's meant for long distance touring. I think the Expedition is, yeah, it's an adventure bike. I think it's meant to do whatever you want it to do, but, and I get that, but I think it's still too wide. I think they could have narrowed the inner leg channel a bit, and they actually do make a seat that is a bit narrower, so it's like their off-road seat, so it's a little bit narrower. It doesn't make that much a difference because the bike itself actually is like really wide inside. So I think some of the design is maybe not necessarily the seat, but actually the kind of the design of the bike, because on that Norden, it gets really wide in here. So no matter how narrow you make the seat, or even if you shave the foam on your seat, you still have all the plastics and stuff that are gonna get in the way, which are gonna make it hard for you to get to the ground. But that seat is super, super comfortable on the road. So back to my video last week, when it comes to seat design, is like, again, think about the type of riding you want to do. If you want to do a lot of like heavy off-road riding and that's your thing, go for a narrow seat, because you're probably going to be standing a lot more if you're going to be doing more technical terrain. But again, if you're going to be doing a lot of road riding, BDR style, where shout out to JP, I've been giving JP a shout out recently, as he always says, you know, like sit most of the time and only stand when you have to, then you probably want a seat that's a little bit more comfortable. And then in those cases, I feel like the Nord 901, that seat would be awesome all day sitting, and super great on BDRs, because you're going to hit a few technical sections where you might have to stand. Should be seated most of the time if you're following that rule, and it would be really, really comfortable. But it does make it harder to manage. So again, think about the seat design and how that matches the style of riding you want to do, and like what's going to better suit what you want to do. Okay, and last but not least, when it comes to seat height, I think one thing that you know, maybe you might have people might feel a little bit of like a stigmata about mentioning this, like, oh, I bought an adventure bike and I got the low suspension. Like, you can buy the GS with a low version, or you can get lowering kits for some of the KTMs. I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing, because again, I think back to point one, where I feel like the seat height actually makes the bike harder to manage in slow terrain. And that's generally where our problems are. That's where you're going to drop the bike in most cases, unless you're just riding like a jerk and you're going way too fast and you wreck and then you drop the bike. But in most cases, the slow spots is going to be where it's going to be really hard to manage the weight of the bike. And so again, I think having a lower bike isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, when I talked about the KTM 890 Adventure R, guys, you know, I was like talking about on the BDR, where I was like, you know, I never really pushed that suspension to the limits. I think I bottomed it out once in like a really rocky section. I was just riding hard. I was riding hard and fast. And so I was pushing the suspension really hard because I felt like I had it. And so I could take the harder lines. And it was on the northern section of the New Mexico BDR. And we were actually heading back south from Colorado. And I was just like riding hard. I was just having fun. And so I did feel like kind of like bottom out, only a couple times. But what I'm saying with that is, like, for the style of riding I want to do on an adventure bike, where I want to just do more BDRs, I want to enjoy the scenery, I want to have fun, you don't need a lot of suspension. Honestly, I feel like if you were a good rider, and actually on the New Mexico BDR, we were riding with a guy that was like, oh, I want to get like an old Goldwing and put some dirt tires on it and do a BDR, which honestly, it probably would be, I mean, with the exception of some like really loose, just like loose sections, like you could probably do it. I think it would totally be manageable, especially if you have the riding skills. So with that, what I'm saying is like, you don't need a lot of suspension in some cases, but maybe you want to do a lot more single track to get back camping, and you want to go with your buddies and you want to do more fun stuff where it's going to be a lot more technical, then you're probably going to need the suspension. But I would say don't let the industry tell you you need the tallest bike and the tallest seat height to be a real adventure rider. Again, I think depending on the type of riding you're going to do, having a lower bike and potentially lowering that bike to get that seat height lower to the ground may actually be a benefit to you. And if it makes you feel more confident and you want to start riding more, and it gets you out riding, then I think that's probably the best thing for you. So don't be afraid to lower that bike or get the bike with the lower suspension, especially like the GS. I think this R1300 is absolutely amazing. I think the tail lever suspension is it's incredible. And, you know, they make a low version. So again, if you want a full-size adventure bike, because you know you're gonna be doing a lot of road, a lot of dirt roads, but you do want to do a little bit more like maybe 2-track, you could easily, I think, I would feel comfortable taking the standard GS, which is even lower than this. My GS, when I measured it, with the tall suspension and the standard seat, I don't have the low seat on this. It's like 34.5 inches, which is pretty tall. And with a 30-inch inseam, like that's pretty tall, but it's not super hard to manage. But if you get the low, like having the standard GS, which would probably drop it another half an inch or an inch and get it closer to that like 33.5, it would be super manageable. And I wouldn't have any problems taking this out in the BLM land where I've like ridden this and like having fun with it. Cause it's just like, I think you could do a lot with these bikes, even without the sport, you know, like the more intense suspension. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around in today's video. Don't forget to leave those comments below to be able to check for your chance to win a special edition 0 Mile hoodie. Also, if you like the channel, you want to support what we're doing, go to zeromileadv.com. I'm working really hard to try to build functional, protective motorcycle gear that not only looks good on the bike and functions on the bike, but looks good off the bike. So check us out there if you want to support us there. And we're always looking to grow. It's a completely small company. It's pretty much just me and one other person at this point. So go check us out. It's the best way to support the channel. And if you want to learn more about seat heights and get more into the discussion on the Norden 901 Expedition in that seat, I have a video all about that. Also, I've got hours and hours of content, so you can dig into this whole conversation around beginners and adventure bikes. So go check those out below.